Okay. Joe was challenging me on metaphysics because I don't believe in metaphysics, so I don't think my ideas on free will, which I don't believe in, since I believe in talking about willpower because it makes it much more obvious it's a physical question. He thinks that those have to be categorized as metaphysics, and that's the most important thing about my idea, I guess. I don't think he read this whole article. I gave him a link to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which really, if you're going to pretend some technical thing, at least read it. It's an awesome resource. And they talk about what metaphysics is. It's a traditional category in philosophy. Yeah, so they mention it. That's why I gave a link to it, of course. And he's like, well, you know, this and that, but I think free will is categorized at it. Yeah. What I'm saying is, people that believe in metaphysics, yeah, they claim to a lot of categories, like talking about the soul. But nothing is actually metaphysical by the intentional meaning, you know. Is there even unintentional meaning where you can define what is or isn't metaphysics? Is that in dispute? Did you get to the end of the article? Yeah. I gave you that article. My point is that there's a lot of history to metaphysics, and it's a messy category that we can do without. If people just call certain things metaphysics, just, here, this is metaphysics, and talking about my mouse is metaphysics, and oh, the Legos are metaphysics. Yeah, there's a foobar. Foobar, so you have to call that foobar. I mean, we call those 5 things foobar, those 5 unrelated things with no connection or description. So I kind of want to get to the connection, the description of the category that tells me, not just that, well, there's these guys and they've called it that. They've called the discussion of free will metaphysics, so that's the most important thing to talk about when talking about, you know, stuff. And if you happen to be one of those guys that don't believe in if you don't believe in metaphysics, then you don't get to talk about will. Yeah, sorry. No, so I told him he should read it, but he's not going to do that. They never do that. So he's already started using it. I think the definition of metaphysics you're using is antiquated, and obviously it is metaphysics. Is metaphysics. Is that what it is? No, it's a phenomena. Doesn't matter what category you put it in, or more than one category. Okay, let's just read the thing. We'll go. I haven't read it in a while, but let's just read it and see if it's a crazy, messy category that I don't have to use, that I don't need to use in order to talk about the physics of the phenomena we call will. It's really annoying. Okay, I have to make it more enjoyable. Mom, shrink my head. Okay. Metaphysics. I might put the link if I remember. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Metaphysics. First published September 10, 2007. It is not easy to say what metaphysics is. Unless you're Joe Vegan, he finds it really easy. Ancient and medieval philosophers might have said that metaphysics was, like chemistry or astrology, to be defined by its subject matter. Metaphysics was the quote-unquote science that studied being as such, or the first causes of things, or things that do not change. And then since those definitions were such bullshit, that it's become metaphysics of the gaps. It's like, well, oh, not that. Oh, it's whatever's left over. It's the things we don't know where the category. Let's just, please let us keep metaphysics. I'm sure you'll see what I mean. It is no longer possible to define metaphysics that way, and for 2 reasons. First, a philosopher who denied the existence of those things that had once been seen as constituting the subject matter of metaphysics first causes or unchanging things, would now be considered to be making thereby a metaphysical assertion by people that believe they can just decide these things are that. These things are that. What makes the metaphysical? If it's not being as such. First causes, okay, what is it? Little modifications of those? Okay, I guess we'll have to hope Stanford gets into that. Secondly, there are many philosophical problems that are now considered to be metaphysical problems, or at least partly metaphysical problems, that are in no way related to first causes or unchanging things. The problem of free will, for example, or the problem of the mental and the physical. This entry examines a large section of the problems that have been classified as metaphysical. It does not examine them for their own sake, however, but as illustrations of metaphysical problems. The discussions of these problems in this entry, therefore, are not meant to be in competition with the entry specifically devoted to them. It considers and finds no satisfactory answer to the question, in virtue of what common feature are these problems classified as metaphysical problems? It also considers various attempts to show that metaphysics, however defined, is an impossible enterprise. So that's the second paragraph. Did you get that far in, Joe? It considers and finds no satisfactory answer to the question, in virtue of what common feature are these problems classified as metaphysical problems? It asks, is there a common feature? No. They're just thrown in there for fun. But there is this link with unprovable, unphysical. You don't need to test them. They're a priori. There is this link with analytic and this goal of making a foundation for your philosophy off of analytic statements, which, since analytic statements are not proven unless there's even prior analytic statements to use as principles, you have this problem of how do you get to the first principles? Oh, how about some a priori self-verifying truths, and we'll put them in a metaphysics that doesn't. It considers and finds no satisfactory answer to the question, in virtue of what common feature are these problems classified as metaphysical problems? It also considers various attempts to show that metaphysics, however defined, is an impossible enterprise. Wow, that's weird. So it's possible to argue that metaphysics is an impossible enterprise, and yet that would mean thinking about free will would be an impossible exercise. Or maybe that's not what it means. Maybe it means that metaphysics is a crap category that is bullshit on every level. On the woo-hoo theistic level, on the, well, you must consider this philosophy level, on the psychological and cognitive level. That's what I think. Oh, that's every university in the world, Joe says. Every university in the whole wide world of worldly wideness would say that since I'm talking about free will, period, I'm talking about metaphysics. Except for the people that, you know, have attempted to show that it's an impossible enterprise. They probably wouldn't say. And they work at universities who, by the way, employ people with a lot of differing opinions that argue with each other. So, yeah. Okay, that's part one. I'm going to read this whole thing. Or, that's my intention.